Good evening, and welcome to NotProvided Studios. And this is What Matters. Tonight I'm here with Steven's Witness, and I'll be talking with him about his music career. My first question for you is, what made you want to start music?
Well, pretty early on, as far back as I could really remember, like 3, 4 years old, my early memories are of my dad playing a lot of records and all these great old groups, and I just used to tell him, I'm going to make records like that someday. But even before I could talk, though, I was like drawn to this because he used to tell me I'd have my little parts that I'd sing in the songs, and only like 3-word little lines that were my part. And so that evolved, listening to that, and I got my first guitar given to me as a gift at 6. And so then from there, once I got a guitar in my hands, I kind of knew there was something going on here.
Yeah. So you've been wanting to be a musician from a pretty early age then?
Yes, pretty much all my remembered life.
Would you say your dad is one of your biggest influence for music?
Well, I would say because he introduced me to a lot of really great music, and that way he is. And he plays music himself too, but he never really stuck with one instrument. But he listens well, and music is like his poetry. And so, yeah, I think because he would sit down with me and say, check this song out, listen to those words, and did you hear that guitar, whatever. And that's definitely was a part of my early focus, bringing my focus to music.
So you started with guitar then?
I did. Guitar was the first thing I started to actually play.
And was it acoustic or electric?
It was an acoustic.
So you're a singer-songwriter, correct?
Yes.
When did you start singing?
Oh, well, I was singing early on, but not singing well. but I knew, to get the song together, my songs I would write, I would have a pattern that I'd be playing, and then I would have certain notes in mind I wanted sung over that. And so I would just initially start almost scatting the stuff to get my notes. But I really didn't start actually singing probably until I started playing in bands with other people. I sang to write, but then when you're playing with other people, you do things, you end up hearing yourself back, and you hear feedback about what you sound like. So that's when I finally maybe started to focus on my singing a little more.
So then you said you were in bands. When was your first band?
I probably first had a band when I was 11 or 12. And it was with this guy a couple blocks away. He played at that time guitar also, which he eventually became a bass player. And we had this kid who was a year younger than us that was a drummer. And we used to sit in the basement and we'd play cover songs. We'd play songs by Led Zeppelin and Motley Crue and all the different cool guitar music that was going on back then. 60s songs even, the whole bunch of stuff. So, but I really, that was just, we never made it out of the basement. My first real band that actually was doing anything publicly would have been a band called Dirty Tricks. That when I was about 16, we were already playing bars in some of the clubs. And I was the older one, actually at 16. Yeah, so.
How many people were in that band?
4. And at one point there was 5, but initially there was me on guitar, there was this kid on bass guitar, a drummer, and then we had this guitar player and singer guy as the 4th guy. I was just playing mostly guitar and singing backups, but then at one point we did get another guitar player, a rhythm.
Did you have any teachers growing up?
I did. Not many. The first teacher I had actually was not very good for me. The first teacher I had was you got to sit down and here's the sheet music. And they were trying to get me to play songs by sight reading that are Mary Had a Little Lamb and that's how you start off on that sight reading stuff. Very simple, one string, up and down the string. And very soon after her teaching me for a little while, I was like coming back, showing her like, look, I learned this part of this Led Zeppelin song or this AC/DC song. And she's like, you're never going to make it to anything. Because I wasn't doing the stuff that she was trying to show me to do. And it's true, I don't read very well. I can't really read and play. I can tell what the notes are. I can tell sort of what it's talking about, but I'd have to rehearse to really play along with sheet music. I couldn't actually just throw it down. But I had a really good teacher, though, probably like two really good teachers when I was sort of in my teenage years. One for about 6 months and one for about a year. They had a big impact on helping me understand certain things that developed my playing. And then once I had that, I was able to, most of my teachers beyond that was just taking what they learned to taught me. And as I played with all these bands and all these other musicians, I would learn from them, as we played together. So there was also a lot of teachers in that sense where I was jamming with somebody and they're doing something. Hey, that's pretty cool. And I figured it out,
So you learn from like a combination of a bunch of different people.
It is, and I would say predominantly I'm self-taught. I think this is something that was inside of me as a gift to me that I think God just put there, and I just had to discover it. And so these people help me discover it more and more, but it's always kind of been there.
So you went to Nashville, right?
Yes. Yep. Eventually I went to Nashville.
How did you end up doing that, and like what made you decide to go to Nashville?
Well, that's a long story. It starts way back in those bands I was talking about. I was really I wrote a lot of songs, and I was one of the main songwriters in all the bands I played with. And when I was about 19, I started playing in a band that evolved in what was a band called Psycho Circus. We had long hair, we were doing hard rock, and I had another guy who wrote as much as I did in that band, the singer. And so that band was predominantly the songs we were writing, and then the band would help us like polish it up. I got a lot of songs written in that time, and I kind of really saw the people responding to what our band was doing. We lived in a band house in Ohio for a while. We were going to go on a tour of Europe, and we were getting test marketed on a couple of radio stations, one in Canada, one was in New York, I forget where the third one was. And things were going well, but it was, I don't know, when we lived in that band house, I got to a point where I was getting real tired of, it's like you're kind of angry all the time in these rock bands. You're fueling off that. That's part of what, at least the kind of rock band we were. And you're in these clubs and everybody's walking around kind of angry and edgy. And I finally decided I was kind of wanting to do more music that brings me peace, because I was sort of discovering a different, deeper component of my faith. And this was in 1993. So it's a long time ago now. But so I left that band, and for a little while just did a bunch of recording in my house. I had like a little 4-track recording system, and I wrote a bunch of songs, and a lot of them ended up being faith-based. Like faith was getting expressed through music. And so as I did that for a while, then I started like playing these at churches. My people asked me to play them at different events and stuff, and people were responding to them. And it got to the point where like I was a youth minister for my first time I was in youth ministry. The whole year I was doing this, all of these kids and youth were like, man, they were just loving the music. And it was kind of a Nashville style. I was writing Christian music, but it sort of had like a earthy rock, blues, country mix kind of sound to it.
Yeah.
And they would have called it Americana back then probably. And so I started listening to these, teenagers telling me, man, you should really do something with these. I love these songs. They would sing along with and they had the words memorized, and they wanted copies of them and stuff. And the adults liked them too. And so I eventually started pursuing, how can I get this music out there? And basically I ended up going on a buddy of mine who I used to write songs with and also do ministry with. We decided to take like this trip. We were just going to take a week, and we were going to travel. And we actually started off going to Branson, Missouri, which is a place where they play a lot of music, but it's kind of funny. We went off season, so nothing was going on at all. Yeah. So we stayed there, and I was like, oh, this isn't going to work. And so then we took the long way down through Arkansas, back up into like, the lower part through Memphis and up into Tennessee, Nashville area. And we were there on a vacation, sort of. We also had a bunch of our music on CD, and we were going to see how many people we could run into out there. And turns out we ran into a lot of people, and we were able to connect with a lot of people. And so we kind of decided at the end of the